Was this your first choice? And can you rewind the last 48 hours and what you did to get this next head coach?
Yeah, so anytime, I'll put it to you this way. I don't ever look at it as first choice, second choice, third choice, okay? I really don't. God's honest truth. I look at it as you go through the process, you work on plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, and that's not a rank order, okay? When I sit down with somebody on one day, and in my mind I may feel like, hey, this one may make the most sense. As soon as you sit down with somebody, you have a feel very quickly. And what I'll tell you, as soon as I sat down with Coach DeBoer, and Nicole was there, and his wife, and then Regina, when we sat down 2 days ago in a hotel room in Seattle, I was like, not that long into, I'm like, this could be our guy. And you want to make sure you do your due diligence and all those things, and that's what we did, and thrilled that we're standing here today with him as our new coach.
Ariel Schaefer, CBS 42 News in Birmingham. When you talk about setting a precedent, Coach Saban did set that, but for Coach DeBoer moving forward, what do you think his precedent is going to be like, and how is he going to continue the tradition and legacy of a program like this moving forward?
Yeah, I think that's why he's here today is because he was excited, honored to take on the task of a program with the tradition that it is. I'll tell you this story. As y'all know, I have ties out that way. And Mike Bellotti, who used to be the football coach at Oregon, took him to the Rose Bowl, coached at a really high level. He and his wife, Colleen, came to our Tennessee game, I think 3 years ago now, or 2 years ago now. We were at home this year, so 2 years ago now. And so think about the level that he coached at, right? And they came to the game with Regina and I, and they got to see everything, and the upper decks, and just the environment, the Walk of Champions, and just the pageantry around this all. And he's like, "Holy cow, Greg!" And so the tagline for the SEC is "It just means more." Who doesn't want to have that opportunity? Who doesn't want to try to take on that challenge? Listen, I didn't grow up in Alabama, right? I didn't, but literally, from my youngest years, I remember watching Alabama, watching Coach Bryant come out of the tunnel, and when Keith Jackson and Coach Broyles would call the games, and that was often in San Diego, California, and then later on in Oregon, and I was like, what an awesome place. I didn't know I was going to be so fortunate to be here one day, but if you know anything about college athletics, if you know anything about college football, it's the pinnacle right here. And if you want a chance to be a part of going after and being a part of the really special things in our country, and one of the special things in our country, you want to be at Alabama, and I think Coach DeBoer and his family feel the same way.
Ryan Brown from the.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you, Greg?
Tired,
okay.
But I'm okay.
We all are.
That's right.
Do you recall the first time Kalen DeBoer came on your radar screen, and what made him appealing to you?
Yeah. So one of the things I told this story next door. One of the things my dad taught me early on, because for those of you who don't know, my dad was an athletics director for 29 years, so I grew up around this. But I remember early on, because he knew I was interested in this, and I'd say, "Hey, Dad, tell me, give me advice on all sorts of different things." But one of the ones that stuck forever was watch coaches coach. Okay, so the story I tell, and it's actually a little bit tied to Coach DeBoer, is my first full-time job in athletics was a regional fundraiser at Oregon. And I had all of Southern Oregon and all of California, okay? And so I had a lot of windshield time, as you can imagine, driving around. But I'd get up to Eugene, and I would go watch football practice whenever I could. Well, Mike Bellotti had just become the head coach, who I mentioned earlier, and he had, in just a few years span, he had Jeff Tedford, who Coach DeBoer worked for at Fresno, who I think was here in 17, if I'm not mistaken. He had Chris Peterson, who became the Washington coach. He had Dirk Cutter, who became an NFL head coach. And I got to watch some really high-level coaches coach. And you learn how to watch body language. You learn how to watch their communication skills. How do they come across? Are they smart people, right? And so I watch a lot of coaches. That's one of the things I do. I literally sit in my office, because I get there so early. I literally sit in my office some mornings before I work out, and I watch YouTube videos of coaches. I watch interviews that take place. So I don't know the first time I ever watched Coach DeBoer, but I would guess it was probably 3-4 years ago, something like that, where he was at Fresno, and you just, I never wanted Coach Saban to retire. You mentioned Ryan, kick the can down as far down the road as you can, but it would have been irresponsible of me if we weren't working on being prepared when that day came, hoping it would never come. And so, I probably watch hundreds of hours of that every year.
Emily Grace McWhorter, also from the next round. When you look back on the last 48 hours or so, what will you remember most, do you think?
Well, what will I remember most? That's a good question. When you go through this, I'm in my 17th year of being an AD, so I've done this a few times. You think about as much, probably as much as anything, you think about the responsibility that you have, that so many people are counting on you to be a good leader and make good decisions and be thoughtful in the process. And I think first and foremost, I thought about the guys on our team. Okay. Next, I thought about our entire department and the impact that our football program has there. Next, I thought about our fan base. We've got a couple of those, right? And the way they support our university and care and the passion that they have. If I didn't take their feelings into account, not that I was sitting there reading message boards, because I don't do that, and that wouldn't have been very productive on my part. But passion here is like none other. And so if you don't feel a responsibility to take the steps of what you're doing seriously, then shame on me. And so, that's when I get through each of the coaching searches I've been a part of. And I think, if I'm hiring a tennis coach, right, the young men or the young women on that tennis team, they're counting on you. They're counting on you and their future and what they've done. And so you better take that seriously too. But I also understand there may be a few more cameras that show up when you announce the football coach than others.
Hey, Greg. Carl Prather, WAFF TV in Huntsville.
Hey, Carl.
When you're trying to find the right guy for this job, did you ever think, in your opinion, to try to continue the trajectory of what Alabama football could be as an organization moving forward down the line? Yeah,
I always remember we were upstairs in the zone my first year here, and Coach Saban spoke after one of our scrimmages and to the Red Elephant Clubs, I think what it was, and somebody asked him. It was a really good question, kind of one I was going to ask him at some point that I hadn't to that point. But so this is 2017, right? And they asked and they said, how do you keep that same drive, that same just focus and ability to continue to try to get better every single day? And he said, I kind of look at it a little bit like a ladder, that I take a step and there's another step ahead of me, and then there's another step ahead of me after that. And so one of my, and I said this next year, one of my favorite sayings, and probably the only original quote I've ever had, but is, the only thing I got figured out is I don't have it all figured out. And so I try to grow every single day in the decision making and what I do, and I have a responsibility in my role to serve our university, serve our student athletes, and serve our fans. And if I ever stop taking that responsibility seriously, then shame on me, and somebody else needs to do this job. And so as you look at what's ahead and how do you grow the program, you got to, every day you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're not maintaining. And as you get older and get more gray hair, right, Gary? Yeah, Gary and I have that in common. Yeah. I knew he could handle it. Yeah.
Sun-kissed locks.
That's right, exactly. You do get a little more wisdom with the gray hair. That's why Ryan doesn't have any gray hair, right?
Not yet.
That's right. No, I'm just kidding, Ryan. And but hey, you better get after it every single day and give great effort in what takes place. And if you do those things, more often than not, you're going to make better decisions. And you're not going to bat 1,000. Nobody does, right? They're not trying to hopefully be offensive here. If you have a faith in Christ, you believe there was one perfect human being, right? And so we have a responsibility to create a vision and do things to give us the best opportunity to succeed long term and continue to get better. Yes, sir.
Gary, gray hair. Harris here.
All right, here comes the zinger at me.
No, really. Coach DeBoer talked about, obviously the immediacy of putting a staff together.
Right.
He's got a staff there. There'll be other coaches that are interested. There's some great staff members here and support staff members. Will you and maybe even Coach Saban talk to Coach DeBoer about staff members here, or will he have to ask?
We already have. Yeah. You know what? Somebody was going to ask me. Will ask me the question next door. Why? For a long time, the media, and I don't blame you writing this or saying this, would say, who's going to want to replace him, right? And I've looked at it as, you better find somebody that doesn't see that as a negative, but sees that instead as a challenge and what an opportunity. And almost immediately, both from Coach DeBoer and Nicole, I could sense a comfort level in who they are and a humility in who they are, and also a confidence in who they are. That's what you're looking for, to have somebody that have that balance. Think of the impact that Miss Terry's made, right? That's, Nicole's not going to be Miss Terry. She shouldn't be. She needs to be Nicole DeBoer. And Coach DeBoer needs to be Coach DeBoer, not Coach Saban. And I sensed that right away and sitting down and talking to him.
What about staff members?
Oh, so staff members, yeah, both of us have already talked with them about it.
Is there interest from your position to keep some of the
Sure.
here?
Yep. But at the same time, too, if I don't have the confidence in the head coach to manage their staff, and I got the wrong head coach, right? Yes, sir.
Hey, Greg. Jamal Kennedy at WCFA 12 News in Montgomery, Alabama. Coach DeBoer has coached, all over the place, from high school to NAIA to FCS and then eventually to FBS. What does his coaching journey tell you about the kind of person that he is?
Well, first of all, I think he's committed to the game of football and has a passion and belief in it, which is what you want in a head coach. I also saw as a person that's willing to take on challenges, right? And have success in taking on those challenges. And so I see a person, a coach, a family that has embraced that journey, and where when you say you get an opportunity to be the head football coach at the University of Alabama and see that as what a unique and special opportunity that is, he very much is somebody that and then on top of that, just looking across his academics, his approach to recruiting. I had to be a little careful this time. One of the tricks I do is trying to call former players, and I had to not set off a bunch of alarms, right? But I still was able to get some feedback out there from people that had played for him and worked with him. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I got a text message from somebody inside the Washington Athletic Department yesterday who I've known for a long time, and she said, "I used to like you." And she said, "We're devastated inside this department because and she said, but we're happy for him too, because what a good person he is within the walls of the entire University of Washington Athletic Department."
Nick Brooks with WTV Wide on and Dothan. Obviously a big week for you guys. You look at Coach DeBoer's resume. What sticks out to you the most of what he's done over the past 2 seasons, or whether it's been the past 20 years as a coach, and kind of why you made the hire? Yeah,
you look, he took over a challenging situation at Washington. Most of the time you're not replacing somebody the caliber of Nick Saban, right? And so most of the time when a head job is open, there's challenge with it. And then look what he did in his 2 years there, right? And did it in this modern times, the transfer portal and everything else that we're dealing with as a reality right now. And then on top of that, you just look at his development of the guys that have played for him, and his teams continue to get better. And so there are a lot of parts so when I sit down with a coach, and I tell this to young coaches who are saying, hey, when they come to me for advice and say, what are you looking for in interviews and such? I say, it's really not that complicated. If you want to be a head coach, you need to explain to me from A to Z academics to zone defense, and everything in between. And you better, especially when you haven't been a head coach before, you better be able to explain to me how you're going to handle each of those areas in a very concise time. When we hired Dan Mullen at Mississippi State, I hired him at 2:30 in the morning at the Embassy Suites in Buckhead, right? We sat down at 9:30 that night. 5 hours later, I said, I think I want to hire you. I hadn't slept then either. Slept a couple hours, and I think we made it official like 6 in the morning. And but I could tell early on this guy had a plan that was laid out, and was very smart, and he had a lot of success over there, right? And then ended up going to Florida, and you know, the year before he got let go, he was in the SEC championship game, right? So, you know, and so you look, I had somebody tell me this time, hey, why don't you just do it by Zoom? I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I learned so much. I learned so much by sitting down and talking to somebody and watching body language and watching facial expressions and, you know, tone of voice and all those different things. And you know, Zoom is certainly helpful in a lot of ways, but you can't make a decision like this by, you know, saying, hey, well, let's set up a Zoom. I'll talk to you in a couple hours, right? You got to get in front of people.
And last one. Hey, Greg, Johnny Condon, ABC 3340 Sports in Birmingham. With respect to the ever-changing landscape of college athletics with NIL and transfer portal, during the interview process, how integral was it that you had a guy that was going to embrace the current climate and, for lack of a better term, be willing to play ball? Yeah, well, Coach Saban had a great line that he said over the years that, you know, the dinosaurs didn't adapt, right? So you better not be a dinosaur. And whether you like something, you don't like something, you know, you need to face reality in what you do. And that was my approach, is like, you better have a coach that doesn't want to deny the realities of what we're dealing with. And that goes across the board in whatever you do. Okay, appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Greg.